In this episode, we're talking about a couple of expansions on some amazing indie games, the foremost being one that plops you into a clockwork-style circus. That's the Sea of Stars, Throes of the Watchmaker. This and more on Indie Game Arcade. Welcome to Indie Game Arcade, a podcast that deep dives into the latest and greatest indie games. My name's Chris. I'll be your solo host for the week. We are unable to record at our usual recording time, which when that happens, because we're both busy beavers, usually it's just easier for me to pop in and do something so that you guys aren't going without any info on the latest and the greatest of the indie games. So right now, we are talking all about a couple of DLCs this week, which came out, in the last several weeks. One of them I'm going to talk about actually came out like a month or so ago, but still worth talking about. But the main topic I wanted to touch on is Sea of Stars, Throes of the Watchmaker.
Game start!
Now, we did a previous episode on Sea of Stars itself. That is a JRPG created by Sabotage Studios. It came out just a couple years ago. It is an amazing game. I talked about it so much and honestly just raved about how much I loved that game. That has not changed. It's not completely perfect. It has its faults, but it is as close to perfect as a game has ever gotten personally for me, especially as a fan of games like Chrono Trigger, which I hold in the highest regard as probably the most nostalgic game for me. This has flown so close to the sun without being burned as of yet. And then they're like, hey, guess what? Here's a DLC. Oh, and wait, it's free? Yeah, you heard that right. It's free for all owners of Sea of Stars. So, again, developed and published by Sabotage Studios, a studio out of Quebec, Canada. Same creators of The Messenger, and what's really cool about that, too, is that they do take place in the same universe. Just like eons apart within the history of everything. But it is possible to see a couple of the same areas, at least one specific area in both games, which is really cool. Just, out of the different art style and everything, which is neat. Throes of the Watchmaker is substantial. It actually adds 8 to 10 hours of new content to the game. You still play as Zale and Valir in a, it's supposed to be a post-game adventure in that you have to have beat the game to be able to access this. But if you're wondering, as far as the story of the game, it doesn't necessarily take place after the game. Does that make sense? So if we're talking the story beats and everything, this actually takes place before you get to the end of the original Sea of Stars game. So it's almost like a, if you want to consider it a book and there's 10 chapters to this book, instead of going from chapter 10 being the end and this being chapter 11, this is actually a 9.9 that gets inserted in there. But you have to have finished the book first to be able to read chapter 9.9, which makes no sense. But that's how it works, man. That's how it works. So this all takes place in this miniature clockwork world of horloge. I don't know if that's how you're supposed to say it, but that's what we're going to go with. Where you are being confronted with this cursed carnival and the puppeteer is like the main baddie presiding over this thing. And this does have to do with the Watchmaker, I promise, but there's like some things I don't want to spoil so that you guys can kind of experience it all for yourself. It's really cool. But I am going to get into like the mechanics because that is like the big thing here. It's very, very different as far as how some of the characters play and everything. So I'm going to talk about that stuff for the most part with a couple of the story beats in mind without trying to divulge too much into the story itself. One thing I do want to say, like right off of the bat, is I had a really hard time at first figuring out how I'm supposed to get this thing started, like how to get into the DLC. So if you've like picked this up, you've downloaded it, and you're hopping into your game, and you're like, wait, how do I initiate this thing? If you're like me and you beat the very end of the game, and let's say you even got the true ending of the game, which is there's two endings. You've got your ending, then you've got your true ending, where you had to like do almost like a 100% completion thing to access this special true ending. So if you did that, then your last save was likely right before you faced the boss, like the Fleshmancer. So you like get in there and like you're like, hey, I want to start up this DLC. Well, you're at that save right before you fought the Fleshmancer, and you're like, crap, do I have to do that again? That sucks. No, you don't. But I didn't know what I was supposed to do at first to initiate the DLC. So I like panicked for a little while, looked around online, trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. Nobody was super helpful with this. And I figured out if I just left the Fleshmancer's lair, then all of a sudden I got this little like a little message in the bottle popped up from Hortense. And it basically was just like, hey, we've got a problem here on our ship. If you could please get back to this ship ASAP and give us a hand, this would be great. But if you leave and get out into like the overhead map, that's what will kind of prompt this thing. Then you can warp to your ship, and that will kind of initiate everything you need to get things going. Because it is Throes of the Watchmaker, obviously the Watchmaker is involved. You do learn a lot more about the Watchmaker as a character and their history, and that is very, very interesting. And like, I'm going to be really honest, I am only so far into it, like not super long. So I know that there's even more lore that's probably going to be revealed, especially because like as you're learning certain things about the Watchmaker, you still, if you guys remember, Rashawn had created that puppet kind of thing, and he had been inhabiting that for a while, and then he kind of popped out and you just had that puppet in his place that did all of his moves and stuff. It just wasn't him. So as certain things are being found out because of like or the Watchmaker talking, like he's kind of popping in and like listening, and then he'll pop back out again, which is really interesting. Like he's not talking to anybody. You just kind of see it happen like in the corner, like his eyes will suddenly like open up within that puppet, and you know that that means Rashawn has popped in there because whatever is happening is extremely important. Whatever information is being shared is very important. So I know that that's going to come back in a very big way. But what's great is you get into this clockwork world to face down the puppeteer and everything. And it's going to be like a whole thing. It's like whole new zones and everything, which is great. They look awesome. It does have this big like carnival kind of theme to it, and all the clockwork kind of stuff, like puppetry kind of things, which at first I thought doesn't seem to fit. But when I thought more about like the clockwork angle of everything, that does fit, because you think about like the I can't remember the name of the game that you could play, the mini game within Sea of Stars, but there was that mini game that was all clockwork, and you could play that in like every town. There would be like a new challenge and stuff, and you had to do that to be able to get to the, you know, true ending of the game anyway. So I'm like, okay, yeah, that actually does make some sense to like add more of this stuff, and I really, really like this aesthetic to it as well. But honestly, the carnival thing, well, I thought that wouldn't be something I was too interested in as a theme. I ended up loving it. And it's so interesting. And one thing that I love that they did too, and I didn't expect, is they pull what I like to refer to as an Elden Ring on you. You get into this like new kind of world, and your solstice magic is not effective on anything in this world. So like I went in there expecting like, okay, I'm like level 20 something. I'm going to steamroll all of this stuff, right? This will be like, not nearly as much of a challenge as it would be if I was, a lower level or something, but I had gotten all of the best gear that you could get in the game. I seriously 100% of this thing. So I'm like, I'm going to steamroll all this stuff. This is going to be like smooth sailing. No, you don't have a chance. You don't have a chance at all. You get annihilated right away. Nothing works against the stuff that you're fighting against. And it's because it's a totally different kind of like magic and different attack styles within this new world. So like you're used to, I'm trying to think of like the slash attacks, the blunt damage, the fire, the solstice kind of fire magic or the sun magic, the moon sort of magic, the poison, all of that is gone and it's all replaced by different stuff. There's like laser stuff. There's just, instead of sun, it's just straight up fire. It is different. And then there's like a different kind of magic that isn't like the purple stuff that like Rashawn could do. So there's like new things to be added here. Because of that, there is like someone that you will meet that will be like, hey, listen, you guys, this is a different kind of world than what you're used to. And like what you're doing is not going to work here. If you want to be able to stop the puppeteer, if you want to be able to be effective in this world, you got to play by this world's rules. That means you got to lean into the absurdity of this world, which is the circus theme. You guys have to become new roles. And so you become totally different classes, which like they still play pretty similar, but it's like different kinds of damage, different, like their attacks completely changed. So Zale's attacks, totally different. Valir's attacks, totally different than what they were before. All new attacks, all new magic and skills, all new combos. Everything you had before that, thrown out the window, completely gone. So Zale's new class is a juggler, so he can like juggle fireballs and stuff, and he is like more agility and multi-hit focused, so lots of combos and stuff on his end. And then Valir becomes an acrobat. So it's a lot more aerial kind of maneuvers and like evasive based techniques and everything. Lots of intricate like dungeon puzzle stuff right off the bat too. Like as soon as you get into this world, you do a lot of like, you get something that has you shrink and go into different mechanisms that you have to manipulate to unlock new areas. And then you like pop back out and then you can use those things. So that's really cool. Like when I say it's like a different world, different rules, like I mean it. It feels very, very different than the original game while still holding on to a lot of like the heart, the soul, the type of storytelling, the type of, I would say the feel of combat and everything is still there. It's just a different type of combat. So it's really, really interesting so far. You also get, and this was like, one of the big selling points for this, you get to play the Artificer, Artie, as they like to call him affectionately. That's where kind of like that laser damage comes in. That's what he does a lot of. He also has this one skill that is just absurd but interesting, where he shoots cannonballs but grabs a trampoline, and then he can run around during like, this is still while his skill is going. So the cannonballs go on the ground or shoot into the air, hit the enemy, bounce off, then you could get multiple hits, but only if you manage to run your trampoline where that ball is going to hit the ground and then bounce it back, and then it'll hit the enemy again. Then it'll kind of show you, it's like showing a cursor on the ground where that cannonball is going to land, and you have to like run over there real quick, trying to bounce it back. And I am struggling with that one for sure. I think partially because as somebody with attention deficit disorder, because like I'm very, very easily distracted by things, like it's hard for me to track where that marker is right away on the ground. So I'm having a lot of trouble like pulling these off. And so I've only gotten like 1 or 2 bounces so far. But then again, when I first started the game, I was having a lot of trouble with some of the other skills and combos as well. And then at one day, it just clicked. Like I was really, really bad with the, was it the Moonerang at first? And then all of a sudden one day it just clicked, and then I got that achievement for it and just annihilated everything from then on. So there's definitely a lot of new things to try to get used to within that context. So the other characters that you were used to playing, like Rashawn and Sarai and Beast or Bist, I don't know how you say it. I always refer to him as Beast. They are not characters in this DLC. I mean, they exist. Obviously, they're part of the story and everything. They do not come with you. There are reasons that you'll get to see. And then there's also the very, very intriguing part of this, which is that you may find some evil versions of Valir and Zale within this world as well. And that is so exciting and so interesting. Yeah, that's all I'll say about that part there. But it's very, very cool. There's still a lot of the same kind of things as before. There's like hidden chests, there's secret areas, there are optional like hidden bosses, there are like lore-rich side quests and everything that you can find through exploring. So it is very much still like the base game. It's just different and in this kind of like pocket little universe kind of area. But, you know, it still has all those same trappings and things that made the base game what it is and made it great. Same style of artwork, everything. And one thing that is a little different, like the original game did have some cutscenes for sure. And those were usually like gorgeous cutscenes when they utilized animation. I feel like this one had more of those right away. There's like, I think there was like 2 or 3 cutscenes within the first hour. And man, the animation for these is so gorgeous. And I'm just like, when are we going to get like a straight up animation, an anime, something with this property? Because I would do so many things, so many terrible things to get this, to watch this. I want it. I need it. And of course, because we've talked before, and I think even on one of our last episodes about like how good the soundtrack of this game is, of course, the soundtrack for this new DLC is just as good. Man, it's, I don't know if they're going to do a vinyl for this. If they are, man, great. I'll make Joseph buy it so I can go listen to it when I, when I visit. Cause I don't have a like record player, but if I did, I'd be getting everything from this game on it because man, it is so good. They even still kept fishing in this Clockwork world. You can still go fishing. What kind of fish are there? I don't know. I haven't gone there yet, but I bet they're clockwork fish of some kind. I love that idea. If you aren't convinced yet, let me just say, this is one of the best JRPGs you'll ever play in your life. There's no debating it. I mean, you can have your opinions, but like when we're talking about just opinions aside, and we're going absolute quality as far as mechanics and story and length of time, you're not going to find much better whatsoever. So it is definitely a game that deserves to be in conversations of one of the greatest, I'd say, JRPGs of all time. RPGs of all time, indie games of all time. It's in there, man. If you haven't played it yet, I gotta tell you, you need to. It is definitely on that, like if I cobble together a list, and maybe I'll do this one day, of like the indie games you need to play before, I don't know, Mephisto rips you from this mortal coil, then this is on that list.
Power up!
If you're enjoying this episode so far, do me a favor, throw us a like, a follow, share this episode or the podcast with the folks who love indie games so we can get more of these game recommendations out there and support indie game developers. We also have a YouTube channel at youtube.com/nerdsloth where you can catch us playing more indie games or check out our top 5 and top 10 series for more indie game recommendations because we believe there is an indie game out there for everyone.
Combo!
Let's talk about another DLC that I've been playing this week. Let's actually talk about a pair of DLCs, but I've only played one of them. But we're going to be talking about the DLCs for Rise of the Golden Idol. These were developed by Color Grey Games from Latvia. Didn't know that. Published by PlayStack, built in Unity game engine. I've been learning more about game engines and things because reasons. We'll talk on that sometime. You'll see. Base game was released November 12th, 2024. The two DLCs we're going to talk about, the Sins of New Wells was released March 4th of this year, 2025, and then the Lemurian Phoenix May 13th, 2025, so just last month. Two more coming out this year. So that's a lot of DLCs. These, unfortunately, not free. You did have to pay for these, but you had to pay for the ones in their last game too. They do offer like a DLC, like a pass that you can purchase and get them at a discount. I don't know why I didn't do that. I've been buying them individually. Not a smart move on my end, but whatever. I like funding these guys because this is one of my favorite. Again, just going back to favorite indie games, this is one of my favorite series for sure. Both of these DLCs are just expanding that kind of detective style narrative of the Rise of the Golden Idol, introducing new cases that are diving deeper into the lore of this game, of this world, where you're engaging in point and click investigations, analyzing these static scenes to uncover clues, gathering keywords, times, names, elements to reconstruct events through like these fill-in-the-blank style puzzles. Both of these DLCs are keeping with that same kind of signature blend of like dark humor and super interwoven storytelling and like lots of logic puzzles. And like, I gotta say, at least with the Sins of New Wells, which is the first one that came out, and that's the one that I've been playing, man, it is a lot tougher than I thought it was gonna be. And in fact, I think I talked about how in the base game, Rise of the Golden Idol, that my one issue I had with that game is that it felt inconsistent with the difficulty of the different scenes that you had to go for. So like if I go back to the very first game, Case of the Golden Idol, the complexity or the difficulty definitely scaled. So the first one, not as difficult, and each new mystery or case or scene or whatever you're presented with definitely escalated, I think, in a very, I think in a very natural way. And I mean that in that there was a very, very conscious progression. Whereas in Rise of the Golden Idol, there was definitely like, there'd be a really easy one, and then there would be one that was just ungodly difficult for some reason. And then in between a hard one and another equally extremely hard one, all of a sudden there was one that was just a cinch. And I didn't understand why it went that way, like how we could get such a hodgepodge of difficulties without like why not just scale the difficulty? That was always weird to me. This one, I don't know how this is going to go because it started off pretty hard right off the bat. So this first DLC, it looks like there's 4 parts to it. And then with an overarching mystery to solve that's tying all 4 of those parts together. That is kind of like how each chapter of maybe scenario, I don't know, I guess chapter, because the individual scenes you go into are the scenarios. So like 4 scenarios, one overarching mystery that you're trying to solve there that will be interwoven into the greater lore and history of this entire thing with the Golden Idol. But man, that first one, there was some really tough stuff in there. And then I got into that second chapter, and though I felt like I understood that one a little bit quicker, there was still some parts in it that were so complex as far as like all the things that you had to examine so closely and think about so hard. It is definitely not a like they've definitely gone from, I feel like in the original game, you could really examine all the words you got and really figure out what's going on based mostly on that. And you would have to like examine the scenes and stuff. But for the most part, as long as you were looking in the right place, it was pretty easy to piece things together for the most part. In Rise of the Golden Idol, things were definitely not as obvious. And then in this DLC, those things are even less obvious, where you're really having to do some, I don't want to say leaps in logic, but a lot more critical thinking than I feel like I had to do in the base game. Like right away in that very first scenario, the solution for that puzzle is there is something in there that is completely like you really have to look at everything in this one particular part of the entire thing. Like if you are not like extremely just picking apart this very specific part, like it's hard to describe, I think, because you're looking at a scene. There's lots of things going on in this scene, and you can drill down farther into it. If you haven't played these games before, picture a static image with several, if you played point and clicks, you might understand to a degree. There's things that you can click on, but imagine those things may open up further scenes. So you click on the door to a restaurant, and then you're seeing inside of that restaurant as well. And there's like even more things to click on, like a couple at a booth. You click on that and that pulls up, a booth with this couple there. And there's things there that you can look at and you can see what they have to say. And then there's another part within that restaurant of, let's say, somebody else sitting at a booth. And there's like a whole thing of them. And then you can also maybe click on that person to see what's in their pockets. So you can see where there's like so many like smaller things to drill down into. And if you aren't looking and scrutinizing every detail of all of these things that you can drill down into, you're gonna miss the clues you need to solve the scenario of what happened. And like this first one definitely took me, I think, way longer than most of the ones in the base game did to figure out, which really surprised me because I felt like the last several of the base game, especially the ones that should be the hardest ones, I feel like I got those way faster than I did this. So maybe it's because I was rusty and I finished that series like back in, I think, December or January or something. But man, it was very, very tough. But I'm very excited to keep going because I love the challenge of these. I love these types of games. I love when they're challenging. I love when it takes me time to sit back and really think about it and get my brain and those brain juices, that brain soup really bubbling. But it's definitely another case of it has me questioning, are they scaling that difficulty correctly like I feel like a game should? That's just my opinion. I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong answer. And again, I have not finished it just yet. So we'll see how the rest of it goes. But just to give you an idea of what to expect for these two DLCs as far as the story. So in this first one, The Sins of Newells, you're kind of following these two detectives. There's Roy Sampson and Cliff Savea, who are investigating a series of brutal crimes, and they're sort of uncovering a sort of a interwoven web of crime involving organized crime involving different gangs and stuff. And it might, because it's Golden Idol stuff, it is definitely intertwined with some ancient Lemurian magic kind of stuff. And Echo Secunda is definitely going to be involved as well, who, if you finish the base game, you'll know all about that and you'll be very excited. There's just something gets said right away in the very beginning, and they don't say his name or anything, but you just you know that's who it is, and you're like, oh my God, yes, it's him. So that's pretty cool. Then the Lemurian Phoenix. This is exploring royal conspiracies, spiritual leaders, ancient prophecies, and it's kind of centered around these two twin brothers, Ori and Koi, and their rise to power, and the manipulations of this person, Jamadi Perea, who is seeking revenge for the execution of his parents. There's some stuff there that's kind of like explaining a little bit of history as to the first like Sentinel from, like, if you remember that stuff from actually one of the DLCs from the previous game. So I think this would have been part of like the Spider of Lanka? I believe it. So I think that's where they really talk about the Sentinel and you learn more about that kind of stuff. I might be wrong. Maybe it was just the base game back then, but I feel like it was, I don't remember anymore. There's been so many. Anyway, you're learning more about like where that stuff is coming from. So more about like the sort of that prehistory of like the big Golden Idol stuff. So anyway, that is the Golden Idol DLCs. Really exciting stuff. Can't wait to get into the rest of those. And then the other two that are going to be coming out later this year, it says Q2 and Q3, but we're coming to the close of Q2 like real soon. So I don't know if that's going to make Q2. So I don't know if it's going to be both of them in Q3 or if we're looking more at Q3, Q4, which would be my guess. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Final round!
Let's talk about some indie games we're excited about. I'm only going to really bring up one here. And I'm going to be honest, if you were on TikTok, you have seen this one. But I have had this on my radar for a while. They have not had a demo up until now. And now that they have one, I'm super, super excited for it. This is called Dispatch by Ad Hoc Studio. No release date for this game yet, but this is a game that is kind of like a superhero workplace comedy. Choices matter, very visual novel, resource management kind of thing. You are managing a dysfunctional team of misfit heroes, and you strategize who to send to emergencies around the city while balancing office politics, personal relationships, and your own quest to become a hero. I guarantee if you're on Indie Game TikTok at all, you have seen stuff about this game because like it has been making the rounds, especially the cutscenes and stuff of this game. It is like tons of it is animated. I mean, fully animated, and looks like animation, like TV show, movie sort of quality stuff. The voice acting in it is like so good. And my wife is going to be like super excited about this too, because there's a character in it named Royd. That is not the reason she'll be excited. The exciting part is that he speaks Pidgin English, which is like what is spoken in like native Hawaiian. When you go to the Hawaiian Islands, that's what you'll hear. That is how her family speaks. And like even her mom, who lives here, where we live in the mainland and everything, and has lived here for like 20 something years, like she still speaks Pidgin. I've never ever seen in media that like any movie we've watched, any TV show, any cartoon, any game, I've never heard Pidgin English. And so this is really exciting. I love that amount of representation. That is so cool, man. But anyway, the whole thing looks amazing. It looks very funny. Like I'm talking like this sets a tone that sort of reminds me of Invincible a little bit, as far as like not only some of the look, but some of the dark humor to it as well. So I would just say, imagine that, but maybe without the extreme over the top gore and the dark places it goes to. But I'm so excited for this game. I'm excited to get my hands on that demo, try it out, and see how that goes. We have a lot of other games that we are going to be playing soon and want to talk about. There was a game that developers sent us 2 Steam keys so that Joseph and I could both give it a try. That one has been on TikTok a lot too. I'll talk more about that next week. So yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff out there. Like we said last week, it's a great time for indie games. This has been an amazing year for games, and apparently an amazing year for indie games game DLCs.
Game over.
Hey, if you had a good time listening to this episode, stick around for the bumper. That's going to tell you how you can support the show and all the things we do here at Sloth Creative. You can also check the show notes for our link tree, which will take you to our social media, our Discord, subreddit, merch store, anything else. But get in touch with us. I want to know what indie games you're playing, and so we can talk about that and help elevate these games. So we can talk about that and help elevate these games so we can help support indie developers. But that's game over for us. My name's Chris, and I'll continue on the next episode.
Continue.
Indie Game Arcade is recorded and produced by Sloth Creative. If you're looking for more gaming content, head over to youtube.com/nerdsloth for indie game let's plays and recommendations. If you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/nerdsloth, where you can select a pledge and receive access to hundreds of hours of bonus content from everything at Sloth Creative. If you're an indie game developer and would like us to review your game or explore other opportunities, send an email to nerdslothcreative@gmail.com with the subject line Indie Game Arcade. Thanks for listening, and keep supporting indie game devs.